everyone. I'm Ginny Schuster, and today my guest is Dr. Robert Saul. I am really excited to have him here. He's been a pediatrics doctor. He's written books. He's an educator. He's from Chicago area, went to college at Duke, and that's where he also taught. So his concern that we want to get the message out there is conscientious parenting, which is the name of his book. And I'd love for you to give people some background, how you got so devoted into this, and talk about your book and what you're passionate about.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. And I thank you for having me on. And please call me Bob.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
I finished my pediatric residency in 1979, and I was going to be the best darn doctor you could be. I'm actually both a pediatrician and a medical geneticist. I was very involved in my practice of medicine, but after 14 years, felt like I wasn't paying back to the community. That is, I had a chance as a professional to make a difference in the community. So at the same time, it's sort of fortuitous, at the same time, I heard a talk where somebody said, and this person was talking to healthcare system, for anything that happens in your community, 12 words: I am the problem, I am the solution, I am the resource.
Oh, wow.
So I need to think of everything as my problem if I want to make a difference. I need to be a part of the solution for those. And to do that, I need to devote my resources. So those words had a real impact, and it actually took me a couple months to internalize them, to figure out, okay, what do I do with those? Mm-hmm. And then I went to the community folks and said, put me in, coach, I'm ready. And I got involved, and maybe even smugly so, I'm a good person, I'm doing all these things. And then April 20, 1999, two teenagers walk into a high school in Littleton, Colorado, massacre 13 people and kill themselves. Unfortunately, sounds very familiar today. And yeah. that just had a profound impact on me. How could that happen in my community? Yes. What have I done to make a difference? Not enough. So I put pencil to paper and wrote an op-ed article to the local newspaper. We used to do that back then, pencil and paper. Right. And articulated what I considered to be the 5 steps to community improvement. And I'll get to those in just a minute. But then over the next 12, 13 years, I wrote over 160 op-ed articles to the local newspaper about all those steps. And then put that in my first book, My Children's Children, Raising Young Citizens in the Age of Columbine. And let me go through those 5 steps, because I think this is a lead in to what we're talking about in terms of conscious parenting and how I got there.
Okay.
Number 1, learn to be the best parent you could be. And I choose those words carefully because parenting is a constant learning experience. You're never done parenting. You're always learning. And the best parent you can be, not everyone has the same abilities. Not everyone has the same circumstances because of socioeconomic status, single parenthood, cancer in the family. There's just so many things that affect your ability to be the best parent you could be. So my job is not to tell people how to be a good parent. My job is to help enable them, to help empower them. Because early in my career, parents would come to me and say, what do I do here, doc? And of course, I was a young, idealistic pediatrician. I just got training. I knew what you're supposed to do. I just read the books. And I quickly, unfortunately not quickly, but over the 40 years of my career, I learned that my job was to help them gently peer behind the curtain and see what's going on, and see how I can help them in a trusted, symbiotic relationship. How can I help you be the best parent you could be? Step number 2, get involved. I think that's so important. And I don't have a specific, this is what you should do or that is what you should do. Just get involved in your community, whether that's scouting, food kitchen, picking up litter, whatever. You need to get involved and be a part of what's happening, because that's what sets the example for your children.
Yep, good idea.
Number three, stay involved. And that might sound related, and it is, but I think it's very different. Sometimes it's hard to sustain involvement, especially when change is around us. Change, they say the only thing that's inevitable is death and taxes. I think it's change is inevitable. And we just need to be willing to be a part of that and stay involved. Number four is the most intuitive, but the most difficult, I think, in our society right now: love for others. And we have this divisive society where people are shouting past each other and aren't listening to each other. And then number five, I said four is the most difficult. I think five is actually the most difficult: forgiveness. I think we don't practice personal and communal forgiveness like we should. And for me, that's been a real journey, sort of learning how to do that. So those were the 5 steps that got me going on this path to where I am now. But I'll stop and let you ask any questions before I go on.
I love it. No, I'm totally with you on all those. I can envision it. And the forgiveness is really a hard one. You're right. I think of those 5, I'm going to take forgiveness is the toughest.
And if you haven't read it, in your listeners, the book Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom.
Okay.
Is a fantastic little book. Mitch Albom was a reporter for the Detroit Free Press, was losing his moral compass in his early adulthood. He found out his prized professor was dying of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, went to visit him, and he went to visit him on Tuesdays to sort of get life's lessons before Maury Schwartz died. But one of the quick takeaways is, in terms of forgiveness, is forgive yourself first, forgive others, and do it now.
Oh, wow.
And so you need to, and that's tough. I mean, because it keeps coming back. And, there's times when I'm sort of fall into the trap of not doing very well. I mean, my father was an alcoholic. We had lots of problems, and was an abusive husband. So there's times when I still have to take that deep breath and realize where I am in my journey.
Well, speaking of forgiveness, so my mind just popped to what you mentioned earlier, these school shootings. This is something that I think if I were a parent, I would just really have an absolute hard time with forgiveness. So that's where I see the biggest forgiveness happen.
You're right, but I think where we lose track of is these school shootings. These people are a part of a system, and we have not done well with the system. If this young man in Texas, obviously we have failed him in some way, shape, or form. I think of the two people in Littleton, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. And I remember that listening to the mother years later after just saying, I don't understand why my son did this, but in retrospect, there were signs. And in retrospect, we have, as a society, don't do well with recognizing those signs. We can blame it all on mental health, but that's not it. I mean, if we live in such a divisive society as we do now, when hate seems to be so rampant, when we just can't listen to each other, when we can't resolve conflicts, this is a breeding ground for this. So we might have a tough time forgiving the perpetrator, but in some ways we need to forgive ourselves for how we've screwed up and how we can do better. I mean, it's so important that we listen, that we interact, that we be a part of everything that's going on with our children and with our families and with our society.
So where do you want to take this book and your avenue? What are your plans here and your goals?
That's a very good question. My efforts right now are fledgling, admittedly. I mean, I wrote this book, the Conscious Parenting book, came out in March 2020. And if that date sounds familiar, that's the onset of the pandemic. So So basically nothing happened. All the
Yeah.
things I had set up in terms of marketing and that sort of thing went kaplooey. So I found myself trying to work back, and then I was still busy clinically. And so I didn't want to short shrift what I was doing with taking care of patients. Now I'm still busy because for another couple months, I'm the president of the South Carolina chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So even though I've retired, I've not withdrawn in terms of my children's advocacy and citizenship. So I hope that I can get this message out to so many more people via probably a sort of a speaking forum, whether that's YouTube, whether that's in person. I continue my writings. I write a daily or a weekly blog. I have a new writing project on what really matters. So once my engagement from the my local chapter of the Academy of Pediatrics ends, I plan to get more involved in terms of what I can do to actively get the message out. And I used to say to all the medical students and the pediatric residents that I work with, if you're not humbled daily, you're not paying attention. And I think that's everything in life should be. And I think you could compress the time frame. If you're not humbled hourly, you're probably not paying attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Not everyone that smokes gets cancer, but it certainly increases your risk. Not everyone that gets physically abused as a child turns the tables, but it certainly increases their risk. So I don't want to take that chance in terms of what happens to children. What I'm talking about is punishment. Discipline, absolutely. And sometimes that needs to be tough love in terms of, just remember the root word for discipline is disciple, which means to teach. So any behavioral issue should be in a teaching, loving fashion. Now that doesn't mean you have to smile and say,
right.
I really like what you do, but you don't hate your child. You might hate their behavior. And hate is still a strong word. I don't like that word. I absolutely need to have specific guidelines. So yeah, I don't mean by not physically punishing your children, you're you're being permissive and letting them do whatever the heck they want. No, absolutely not. You're right. You want to discipline, loving, trusting discipline is crucial.
And I think that's an important point to get across to people.
And, sometimes it's interesting how the circle of life comes around, because I said at the very beginning, learn to be the best parent you could be. You're always parenting. I mean, as we get older now, we're parenting our parents. And I found this with my mother before she passed away, and had to make difficult decisions that she did not like.
Oh, really?
On her behalf. So it was, you have to, so in some ways I was disciplining my mother, which she did not like. Much
paybacks.
much like children don't like the discipline from their parents, but it's what has to happen.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Are there any last words of wisdom that you have for our viewers?
I am the problem. I am the solution. I am the resource. Change the pronoun. We are the problem. We are the solution. We are the resource. So this disaster that occurred in Uvalde, that sort of got me involved in COLUMBINE in 1999, Sandy Hook in 2012, and all the intervening things. We have to consider that we are the problem. We are the solution. We are the resource. And forgiveness is going to be crucial as we go down this road.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today. All your words of wisdom. I would love for people to reach out to you. Conscious Parenting. Get that book on Amazon.
Correct.
And connect with Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ginny. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you again for joining me today.